Play the ponies in style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
Welcome one and all to another edition of the Defo Show with Lubie here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network, brought to you by Water Cleanup of Florida. It's that time of the year. Each and every day you're setting your clock by the rains, and that isn't always good for our homes, whether it's water damage, there, flooding, fire, mold issues, all are things we never want to deal with our home. But because Water Cleanup of Florida is there with over 60 years of combined experience between Michael, Robert, their team, because they have licensed contractors on staff, and you can reach them 24/7. I've been saying this, I'm going to keep hammering this point home. It has for me at least, brought my stress levels down. Knowing that there's someone out there that you can get in touch with immediately, they will come in, assess the situation, and fix it effectively, efficiently, and with quality has allowed me to take a deep breath and exhale when it comes to dealing with our home. And I hope, and I presume, the same thing can be said for you. Just call them, 954-579-0356, 954-579-0356. Reach them on their website, WCUFL.com, WCUFL.com. If you mention 5 Reasons, or Lubie, 5 Reasons or Lubie, you get a free inspection during business hours. Check them out on their socials as well, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Water Cleanup FL. Water Cleanup of Florida. We clean up your schmutz. It was a mixed bag weekend when it came to the South Florida sports scene. No heat. We had the finals happening Friday, but we still have the heat on the brain. The Miami Dolphins, again, Tyreek Hill keeps talking about his current quarterback in reference to his former quarterback. Talked about that with NFL Agent to the Stars Brett Tessler. Also talked NBA Finals and a little heat with Sean Deveney. Sean Deveney comes up first, and then some Brett Tessler next. After that, here, the Defo Show with Lubie on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Sean Deveney, Heavy.com, and longtime NBA basketball analyst and writer, joins us here on the show, and it's always a pleasure to have him on. Sean, we saw a very distinguished Pat Riley giving his State of the Heat address. I don't know if you caught that, Sean Deveney, but
I did.
The level of devastation that he suffered was indicative of the character portrayal and the image that they portrayed in Winning Time. When he said he was devastated, flattened, he couldn't even speak for the next few days after losing to the Celtics, and that was another one of those improbable Celtic postseason victories that we've seen so far, as they have really battled their way into a position where it's not as pretty as Golden State is at times, but they have shown this kind of grit. But what did you make of that Game 7? Because everybody had concluded after the Heat performed so well in Game 6 in Boston that Miami was going to go on and win that series and challenge for the championship this year.
Yeah. I mean, especially with the way that Jimmy Butler had sort of that LeBron James 2012 moment, for them to come back and the Celtics to play the way they did, and he came close to even within the game set, came close to coughing that up, which is this is a team that loves to shoot itself in the foot. It's very good at that. But it's also a team that does have a certain amount of resilience. I wouldn't be surprised if they go in and win Game 5 in San Francisco. And then I wouldn't be surprised if Golden State comes back to Boston and wins there, and we get a Game 7 that way. That would not surprise me at all. It's been typical of the Celtics. But that was really the Celtics season in a nutshell, because they did play well. They had everything together. And then they had, what was a 3-minute span in which everything just sort of, or even less than that, 2-minute span, which everything just sort of unraveled, and they couldn't, they couldn't shoot straight, and that's been typical of their year, where they have a certain level of talent, but they also have a tremendous capacity to make mistakes, and we've seen that in the series in the finals. That it's it's very often, Jason Tatum with 6 turnovers there in that game 4. It's very often the turnovers that the self-inflicted wounds that are the reason that the Celtics lose during this postseason.
Well, Sean, and Defo brought up Pat Riley, and I talked with you about this a couple weeks ago, but it's funny. We've heard not only rumors persist about, Donovan Mitchell, Bradley Beal, some other, Zach LaVine. For some reason, everyone wants Zach LaVine, which is, the guy's become an all-star, but I just find that an interesting name. A guy who loves to make sure, it's funny, as much as in his early years, he didn't want people to talk about him. He makes sure if you're not talking about him, he's going to say something on one of his various media entities. So now you do talk about him. Mr. LeBron James on The Shop, which is where before he did everything else, that's where he started doing things. Of course, he and his buddy Rich Paul, instead of all the other famous people, it's just them in the shop talking. And he throws out there, I guess it was the Final Four was still going on in the NBA when they recorded this. And Paul's like, if you could see yourself playing for any team, who would you play for? And he was like, well, I could see myself really helping the Heat and the Warriors because of, what they have already. I think it would be something special. So obviously, everyone in Miami is now running with this quote. When you hear stuff like that from LeBron, what do you do with it? And what are the chances that he does end up with an actual winner at this point of his career, the way he sort of has made everything about him?
Yeah, it's funny when he says something, it is always calculated. I mean, he's had every word of his watched for the last 19 years, maybe even longer. He was back when he was a junior in high school. So 20 years we're talking about of having every word you say monitored. At this point, he knows when he says something, the impact that it's going to have and the reaction it's going to get. And so when he says something, it's a message. It's a message. And I don't think it was a message to the Heat or the Warriors. It was a message to the Lakers. That hey, I might not stick around. That things deteriorated to the point where I might not stick around if you guys don't get this together. Which is a strange thing. I do think that's the message. You could also step back and say, well, you're the one who wanted to trade for Russell Westbrook, so whose fault is this? Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's when he does something like that, it's calculated. And I think the message there was for the Lakers more so than for the Heat or for the Warriors.
Would you say the Lakers made the right move with their coaching hire?
Yeah.
It was interesting at the press conference that LeBron introduced him as their new head coach, and Pelinka was nowhere to be seen. In fact, Rob Lowe was in the crowd, and they mistook him for Pelinka. But, yeah, I mean, so what did you make of this? I mean, a longtime assistant under Budenholzer, who just a couple of years ago everybody thought was a bozo.
Yeah, it is interesting the way that shifts, and a guy who's never been a head coach before. It's a gamble to me, to not get somebody who's got a little bit of a background in terms of being in the head chair and making those kinds of decisions and keeping the locker room tight and all that sort of stuff. And by all accounts, Darvin Ham's a very good coach and it should have a good coaching career ahead of him. It's just, is this the job that he should really be starting out with? That's the big question. It was interesting, though, that there was all this talk about Doc Rivers, and I know that a lot of those veteran players, including LeBron, were really hoping that maybe something would happen with Doc Rivers. When it was clear that it wasn't, that's when you saw Darvin Ham come up as being number one. But there's no question that they were interested in having somebody like Doc Rivers there, and only made that choice after it was clear that wasn't going to happen. But it's also interesting that they were very concerned about putting together a united front. So once it was Darvin Ham, it was going to be everybody behind him. If you remember when they hired Frank Vogel, they really messed up that whole scenario. If you think back, they had Ty Lue, and they were going to bring him in, and the contract negotiation got screwed up, and Ty Lue winds up going to the Clippers. They were going to get Monty Williams. He looked at the situation, looked at the Phoenix Suns, and said, I'll go there. So he winds up at the Phoenix. Frank Vogel was their third choice. So they were very concerned about being, sort of presenting a united front in this Darvin Ham thing. And it was kind of funny watching the press conference, seeing that everybody was almost a little too enthusiastic, for a guy who's still a first-time untested coach.
I could see Doc Rivers being well liked by players, maybe even players wanting to party with Doc Rivers and him becoming one of the guys. But
as a coach,
speaking of Bozo, I mean, after those bozoic moves that he made in the postseason, which I think directly attributable, to that loss to the Miami Heat in the playoff second round, was this whole thing with Embiid, but which just reeks of a coaching mistake, which somehow Rivers got off the hook on that, but. I don't know. I mean, why would this guy be so desirable? You would think Mark Jackson had a better chance of getting a job at this point than Doc Rivers.
Yeah, players really like Doc Rivers. He's very good at connecting with players and people around the league like him. So he has this reputation, and he won a championship 35 years ago, so he's still milking that as well. So, but no, he's very well liked. I mean, that's the thing, and he's very good at setting up a coaching staff and having things run and getting things organized. He's very good at that and getting people to buy in. But you're right, when it gets into the in-game decisions, really, if you go back to his time with the Clippers, he's had a very bad record with that.
Yeah.
He's made some monumental mistakes. Of course, blowing the 3-1 lead when those were the Clippers. He's made some monumental mistakes in terms of his X's and O's and his in-game decisions on the biggest stages.
Yeah, but he's very likable. The press likes him. They kind of just let him off the hook there when we got to the beginning of that Heat 76ers series. You were thinking, they're going to crush this guy with questions about the Embiid injury and what the hell he was doing on the court. And, unless he had held up a picture of Gino Auriemma, you would have to think that the man was crazy for having his star player out there under those circumstances, up 29. But, somehow he was like a major candidate, as was I think every name was mentioned except for David Blatt as a potential coach of the Lakers. And this new guy immediately came in and embraced Westbrook as being one of the great players in the NBA and saying, hey, it's up to us to make it possible for these guys to blend together. I mean, a bigger problem, obviously, for them is Anthony Davis playing like half a season now, it seems like every year. And he would be the most important element there, maybe even more so, hard to say it, than LeBron James, who continues to amaze. I wouldn't mind, as Lubie suggested, if LeBron James ended up on Golden State and won a title, if they could keep, whatever they have, the semblance of that core together again next year. Would you really begrudge him that? Or how do you think that would be viewed by the fans? Because, it's not evenly divided. I would imagine LeBron James has more people that actually like him as an NBA star than don't.
Yeah, I think it would probably be pretty split. It'd certainly give, folks on the talk shows plenty to discuss, I'm sure. But, I think it would probably be overwhelmingly negative, though, just because, it will be his fourth team and, clearly championship hunting. This is one of the things about this finals that I think a lot of people have liked is that both of these aren't super teams. These are teams that were sort of built within through the draft, and guys that, really grew up with those teams and it kind of looks like the approach of the super teams, so the Mets and teams like that, didn't, and of course the Lakers, didn't have much of a chance in this postseason against these teams that were just really well run and well built. And so if you turn from that and go right to the Warriors bringing in LeBron James, I don't know. I don't think that would be received very well.
Well, Sean, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for being with us here on the show. Do you have an opinion as to who comes out on top in tonight's game and or the series or both?
Yeah, I do think that I think the Celtics go there and win tonight. I really do.
Oh, yeah. Really?
And then I said it jokingly, but I really do think that Golden State comes back to Boston and wins, and then the Warriors in 7. Finally the Celtics lose 2 games in a row. I think it'll be Game 6 and Game 7.
Okay.
I think you get a pretty nice price on that. Yeah. There's actually a proposition bet that I was inclined to notice in the paper today on my New York Post Degenerate page that had Celtics winning Game 5 and then Golden State coming back and winning the series in 7. And I think you get like 5-1 on something like that.
Oh, wow.
So, if you got a couple of sticks, you might want to throw it. You might want to throw it into the fire. We can book that action for you if you like, Sean. I'll give you my
I'll handle it myself. Thank you.
You can sell me the money. Yeah, just sell me the cash. All right, thanks, Sean. Always a pleasure, my friend. We'll catch Sean Deveney, heavy.com. You can find all of his NBA analysis. It's always great. And thanks so much for being a part of the show today with the Sean Deveney. Really appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Be well, Sean.
All right, thanks a lot. Brett Tessler, the agent of the stars, with us here.
All right, Brett. So I know I'm becoming a broken record because every week I'm asking about, the Dolphins' approach now compared to the last regime, and Tua getting a pass on the back now compared to what he was getting before. But each and every week, Tyreek Hill says something new. So he gives me fodder to ask you and anyone associated with the NFL, because I find it interesting. Look, we know what Patrick Mahomes is. Whether he's gotten a little bit more guff the last couple of years, he's still 1, 2, or 3 when it comes to ratings as a quarterback in the NFL. We know Tua's even the biggest Tua fans like me don't put Tua in that same breath. However, Tyreek Hill keeps doing it. And I get it. It's his quarterback, and I get it. I don't think he has beef with Mahomes, and he's trying to just uplift his quarterback, but he's pretty incessant. Recently, this weekend, he came out saying, look, Patrick was great, but there are things Tua does better, especially accuracy. I mean, no one thinks of Mahomes as an inaccurate quarterback. When you continually hear Tyreek Hill say these things, what is your reaction to it?
You know the old expression, me thinks someone protests too much, or however the hell it goes. Whatever it is. I don't speak Old English. I can barely speak current English. So however the old expression goes, it seems like an awful lot of over-the-top, effusive praise. But again, it's better to hear that, I suppose, than word getting out that he has a terrible arm or he's missing everybody in the OTAs and minicamps up to this point. So the reality is it's all just talk, and the truth is going to come to light here in the next, few months once we get into camp, and then ultimately the preseason, and then, certainly the regular season. So it's fun for everybody to read about it and talk about it and hear about it. But the reality is everybody knows this is the crossroads of Tua's career here this season. This is the season where either he is going to step up and, establish himself as a legitimate long-term starting quarterback to this franchise, or where they'll be looking in a different direction, either through the draft or free agency. And, based on the way most of the last 30 years or roughly so have gone for the Dolphins, I would say probably more like, 20, 25 years, whatever it's been since Marino retired. Everybody knows what it's been like, and everybody's seen what it's been like for other organizations like the Browns, and, pretty much any team who hasn't been able to find that long-term guy to carry you for the next 12 years, 15 years or so. Let's hope that's not going to be the case for the Dolphins fans. Let's hope that Tua is what some people are talking about that he is, and let's hope that with the benefit of a great running game, improved protection, obviously a world-class receiving core, let's hope that he can step up and do what he needs to do, where this team can start winning games because of him.
Brett Tessler, the agent of the stars, with us here on the Defo Show. Jeff DeForest and the Tua-obsessed Mike Lubie. It's interesting. I haven't done a lot of sports talk. Of course, back in the day, Brett, the debate was who's the better quarterback, Marino or Montana. And then with the Dolphins over the last 20 years since Marino's retirement, it's who is the better quarterback, Jay Fiedler or Ryan Tannehill, which doesn't leave you a lot, to choose from there on the buffet. Is that it? No more crab legs? Are they bringing more out? That kind of thing. I wanted to get back before Lubie got into this thing. Just one thing on the USFL, which struck me because you, my friend, have made a career and built a legacy out of finding that Horatio Alger's story. I mean, just dusting off a prospect who was being overlooked by either drafting teams or teams that actually had the guy in camp and on practice squads, and they had to bounce around a little bit. And you would encourage him to keep going. And you mentioned that the USFL and XFL could serve a great purpose as a minor league and give these players a chance to kind of stay in the game when otherwise they'd just be on ice. Or literally on ice in the CFL. But have you seen, are you scouting this pool of talent yourself, maybe to find that so-called diamond in the rough? Or are all these players already under some form of representation that are playing in the USFL?
Well, the majority of the players in that league are guys who have already had a taste of the NFL, meaning guys who are either in training camp or on practice squads, and, in some cases, even guys who've been on rosters. It just depends what direction a guy's career is moving. If a guy's in the XFL because their career is on the downward plane, meaning if it's a guy who has had more than a fair amount of NFL looks and for whatever reason just hasn't been able to cut it or maybe just isn't good enough, which, look, there's no shame in that. A lot of people in this world aren't. And so if it's a guy, though, whose career is on the upward trajectory, maybe a guy who, for whatever reason, didn't play in the correct defensive scheme in college, maybe a guy who didn't get the fairest opportunity in the NFL, or maybe a guy where the light just hasn't gone on either mentally or professionally. You take a guy like Cameron Wake. I think it was the Browns that maybe he was in, or maybe the Giants I think he was in camp with. And then he ended up going over to Canada and started becoming the player that we all knew that he became down in South Florida. Just, for whatever reason, he just needed that light to go on. And it happened, and he became one of the best pass rushers of that generation. You've seen the case with guys like there's been so many guys throughout the years. James Harrison,
a lot of quarterbacks,
camp with the Browns. Sam Mills was in camp with the Browns, and got cut. So it happens where these guys need a chance to go to. In fact, Sam Mills, he went to the USFL in 1983 or 84, 85, whatever it was back then. And then, of course, came back to become the great player that he was for the Saints and the Panthers. So, there have been examples, and there will continue to be. And that's why it is so important that these leagues thrive and remain solvent on more than just a year-to-year basis.
No, it's funny, too. We talk about the persona that you have to, have to be a tough NFL player, especially if you're playing on the offensive or defensive line. You ever run into Dwight Stevenson? I ran into him the other night at a birthday party for the lovely Fudge Brown, Brett Tessler. And it's hard to imagine this guy was ever knocking the snot out of people for a living. I mean, it is strange like that sometimes when you run into players and you see like the toughest of guys are just like the most gentle of human beings in the aftermath of their playing career.
It's so funny that you bring up Dwight Stevenson because on Friday I was supposed to play in his golf tournament with one of my players from the Vikings who lives in Boca. But unfortunately, when my guy left the OTAs that afternoon, the flight to Florida got canceled and he wasn't coming into the next morning. So instead, we just decided to hit the road to head up north a little bit sooner, a few hours sooner than we would have otherwise. But, it really is amazing when you think of what an all-time great Dwight Stevenson is. He really is the example of a guy who's unfortunately, with the injury he had and, medical technology 40 years ago not being what it is today, it's truly tragic that guy's career was not able to continue because just, on those Dolphins teams, obviously you had Dan Marino and that was the focal point. And there were so many other weapons that everybody talked about that really for the handful of years that he did play, not only was he the best center in the league, he was probably one of the best centers of all time. And back then is when it was much more of an athletic, technical way to play offensive line than it probably is today with guys weighing 305, 310, 330 pounds, whatever it is. Back then, these guys were all lighter, way quicker. I mean, Dwight Stevenson, I don't know exactly what he weighed when he played, but I can assure you it was well under 300 pounds. And that guy was just incredibly quick, incredibly athletic, incredibly technical. I mean, hand usage, footwork. That guy probably had the athleticism of a high-level linebacker. And, truly a great guy. And hopefully next year we'll be able to play in that golf tournament that I hoped we could have played on Friday.
I don't know if he weighs in at a deuce anymore. I think he, is under the cruiserweight limit, man. He's, extremely trim and has been for a while. So always good to see when these athletes that had to carry around a lot of weight, find a way to a healthier lifestyle, if you will, so that they can have some longevity.
Thank you so much, one and all, for tuning in today to the Defo Show with Lubie here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Talked about tonight's Game 5 in the NBA Finals a little bit. Talked about the Miami Heat's offseason. LeBron once again talking, and he's mentioning the Heat by name, the heater in his mouth. What does that mean? Sean Deveney gave his idea. We'll see what it means. It feels like it's going to be a very long, and not long negative, but long as an active offseason for the Miami Heat. Going to be a lot of rumors, and we love the rumor mill as fans, but it can get you excited, can also get you frustrated. We'll talk about it all right here. Plus, the Miami Dolphins have made their moves. Their season upcoming. OTAs are here. We'll have training camp. We'll talk about that as well, as Tyreek Hill is making sure they're in the news each and every day. Check us out each and every morning, South Florida Live, the YouTube channel, also the Facebook page, South Florida Live. Check that out, 7 to 9. We are live with Defo and myself. Also, our national content, or nationally sports-related content, the Believe Network, BLEAV.com. Search After Hours. And each and every day, our South Florida sports content right here, the Defo Show with Lubie on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Hey folks, Tony Segreto here. You know, since day one, Catholic Health Services has been part of Old School. And since we've started letting people know about them, it's changed their lives. You see, Catholic Health Services, while being recognized as one of the top places for stroke rehab in the country, it's also about a group of people who not just excel in what they do, from the doctors to the nurses to the therapist, on and on and on. It's how they do what they do every single day that separates them from the pack. They do it with a passion, unmatched, and the inclusion of family in every step of the process. Trust me when I tell you this. If you want the best, unmatched rehab with a special group of skilled, caring people, there is truly only one place, and that one place is Catholic Health Services.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. Their hours have changed a little bit. Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 10, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11:30 to 10. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.